She was starving herself so her daughter could eat, and the millionaire watching from his car had no idea that this freezing woman in the rain was about to destroy everything he believed about love, money, and what it actually means to be rich. Before we get into the story, kindly let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this story, please like the video so other people just like you can find this video too. Now, let's get into it. December 17th. Freezing rain coming down sideways outside Westbrook Academy, one of those private schools where the parking lot looks like a luxury car dealership and the tuition costs more than most people's mortgages. And there's Alexander Donovan, sitting in his Tesla, heat blasting, leather seats warming his back, checking emails that could wait but never do. He's worth $200 million, self-made, built a tech empire from a garage and a dream. Lost his wife to cancer 4 years ago, hasn't felt anything real since. And then he sees her, a woman standing at the school gate. No umbrella, no car, coat so thin you could practically see through it. Just standing there, in the rain, waiting. And here's the thing that stopped him. She wasn't complaining, wasn't looking around for sympathy, wasn't doing anything except enduring. Like the cold and the wet were just another item on a list of things she'd learned to survive. Her name was Clara Mendez, 34 years old, widow, mother, working 2 jobs and sleeping 4 hours a night, walking 40 minutes each way every single day, because the bus pass was a luxury she couldn't justify when her daughter needed new shoes for winter, and she was slowly, quietly, invisibly, disappearing. Now, let me ask you something, and I want you to really sit with this one. When was the last time you noticed someone who was trying not to be noticed? Someone standing in the cold, carrying weight you couldn't see, fighting a battle they never advertise? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of us don't. We're too busy, too distracted, too wrapped up in our own problems to see the person falling apart 3 feet away from us. Alexander Donovan was like that. For 4 years, he'd perfected the art of looking without seeing, showing up without being present, providing everything for his 8-year-old son Ethan, except the thing the boy actually needed. But that day, that freezing, miserable, ordinary December afternoon, something cracked. Something shifted, and the man who had spent 4 years building walls around his heart was about to have those walls torn down by a woman who couldn't even afford lunch. Here's what you need to understand about Clara Mendez. 18 months before that rainy afternoon, she had a husband, Miguel, construction worker, hands like leather and a laugh that could fill a room. They weren't rich, not even close, but they had a plan. Miguel had found this scholarship program for their daughter Sophia, Westbrook Academy, best elementary school in the state. Full ride, their little girl was going to have opportunities they never had. The application was approved on a Tuesday. Miguel fell from scaffolding on a Thursday. The company that was supposed to protect him filed for bankruptcy before the funeral flowers wilted. No settlement, no insurance, nothing but a stack of medical bills from the 3 days he held on, and the casket Clara had to put on a payment plan. So there she was, living the dream her husband died for, getting her daughter into that school, walking through freezing rain because the alternative was admitting she couldn't do it. And every single morning, she gave Sophia her own breakfast and said she'd already eaten. She hadn't, not once, in 11 days. What happens when a man who has everything meets a woman who has nothing, and both of them are missing the exact same thing? That's the question this story answers. But I'm going to warn you right now. This isn't some fairy tale where the rich guy swoops in with his checkbook and fixes everything. Clara Mendez didn't want to be saved. She'd been saving herself since she was old enough to understand that nobody was coming to rescue her. And Alexander Donovan? He didn't even know he was the one who needed rescuing. Their children saw it first, the way lonely kids always do. Ethan noticed Sophia sitting by herself in the cafeteria, stretching a peanut butter sandwich like it was the only food she'd see all day. Sophia noticed Ethan watching his father's car drive away, shoulders dropping because Dad was on the phone again. Two kids from opposite ends of the universe, both of them aching for something they couldn't name, and when they found each other, they started a chain reaction that would force their parents into a collision neither one expected. The question wasn't whether Alexander and Clara would meet. The question was whether either of them was brave enough to stay. Over the next 60 minutes, you're going to watch two people who had every reason to walk away from each other discover why they couldn't. You're going to see a millionaire take a minimum wage job. You're going to watch a woman who hadn't cried since her husband's funeral finally break down and find out it didn't make her weak. You're going to witness a Christmas party where everything goes wrong in the most beautiful way possible. And you're going to understand, maybe for the first time, why the people we're meant to find rarely come wrapped the way we expect. But here's the thing I need from you. If this story moves you, if it makes you feel something, question something, remember something, don't just watch it. Be part of it. Hit that subscribe button right now. Not later. Not when you remember. Now. Because there are people scrolling past stories like this every single day, numbing themselves with content that doesn't matter, and every time you subscribe, you're telling me to keep making things that do. And look, I get it. Some of you won't subscribe. Maybe you've been burned before. Clicked the button on a channel that stopped posting or started selling stuff you didn't want. Maybe you're tired of being asked. I understand that. But here's what I'll say. If you can watch a story about a woman who walked 40 minutes in freezing rain for her daughter's future, if you can witness a man who gave up his inheritance to stand next to someone the world told him to ignore, and you still can't bring yourself to click a free button that costs you nothing, then I want you in the comments. Seriously. Tell me why. Tell me what's holding you back. Tell me what I need to do better. Because I'd rather hear your honesty than have your silence. This channel isn't about numbers. It's about people who actually give a damn. And if you're still here, still reading, still listening, I think you might be one of them. So make a choice. Subscribe and stay for what happens next. Or drop a comment and tell me why you didn't. Either way, don't disappear. Because Clara almost disappeared. And the only reason she didn't? Someone finally decided to see her. Now, let's get into how it all started. It was December 15th, 8 days before Christmas. And in two completely different worlds, two completely different mornings were about to begin. December 15th, 8 days before Christmas, 6:43 in the morning. Alexander Donovan's alarm didn't go off because Alexander Donovan didn't sleep. He was already awake, sitting at his home office desk, reviewing contracts for a security software deal that would add another $30 million to his portfolio. Outside his window, the Connecticut sunrise was painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. He didn't notice. He hadn't noticed a sunrise in 4 years. Let me tell you about Alex Donovan. Not the magazine version, the real one. 38 years old, 6'2". The kind of face that looked good on investor brochures and charity gala programs. Self-made millionaire, which is the polite way of saying he clawed his way up from absolutely nothing. His father drove a delivery truck. His mother cleaned hotel rooms. They sacrificed everything so their son could go to a state college where he studied computer science and slept in the library because his roommate's snoring made studying impossible. 20 years later, that kid who couldn't afford pizza on a Friday night owned a tech security company worth $200 million. 1,200 employees, offices in 4 countries. A house so big that his footsteps echoed in the hallways. Success story, right? The American dream, wrapped up in a Tesla and a tailored suit. Except here's what the magazines never wrote about. His wife Rebecca died when their son Ethan was 4 years old. Pancreatic cancer, diagnosed in March, gone by November. 8 months from something doesn't feel right to a funeral where Alex stood at the front of a church and couldn't remember a single word the pastor said. After that, something inside him just switched off. He didn't fall apart. That would have been too human, too messy. Instead, he poured every ounce of his grief into the company. Meetings at 6 a.m., calls until midnight, deals, acquisitions, expansions, anything to fill the silence that Rebecca left behind. And his son? Ethan got everything money could buy. Private school, tutors, a bedroom bigger than the apartment Alex grew up in, birthday parties with professional entertainers and custom cakes. Every material need met before he could even ask. Everything except a father who was actually there. Every morning, Alex drove Ethan to school himself. That was the rule. Non-negotiable. But here's the thing about rules that make you feel like a good parent. They're real easy to follow when you're not actually present while you're doing it. Alex would pull up to Westbrook Academy, Ethan would unbuckle his seatbelt, and somewhere between "have a good day, buddy" and the car door closing, Alex's eyes would already be on his phone. Emails, Slack messages, stock updates. The work never stopped. And if you'd asked him, he would have said he was doing it all for Ethan. But Ethan? Ethan just wanted his dad to look at him. Really look. The way he used to, back when Mom was alive and everything felt safe. That morning, December 15th, Ethan stood on the curb outside the school and watched his father's Tesla pull away. He waved. Alex waved back, phone pressed to his ear, already taking a call from someone in Tokyo. Ethan's hand dropped. His shoulders followed. 8 years old and already fluent in the language of being overlooked. But here's what neither of them knew yet. In exactly 47 minutes, Ethan was going to meet someone who understood that language too. A girl with an empty lunch bag and a mother who was slowly vanishing. And that girl was going to change everything. 6 minutes across town. Though it might as well have been a different planet, Clara Mendez was already awake too. Had been for hours. She'd gotten home from her night shift at the hospital at 2 a.m., slept until 5, and spent the next 90 minutes doing what she did every morning, preparing for battle. Battle against what? Against the math that never worked, against the bills that kept coming, against the voice in her head that whispered every single day that she wasn't going to make it. Clara's apartment was small. 500 square feet of cracked walls, drafty windows, and a radiator that worked when it felt like it. The kitchen was barely a kitchen. A hot plate, a mini fridge, a sink that dripped no matter how many times she tightened the handle. On the counter sat a row of oranges, carefully arranged. Not because she liked the color, because if you put fruit out, the apartment looked like someone was living there on purpose. In the bedroom, the only bedroom, which Sophia had and Clara slept on the couch so her daughter could have a door that closed, Sophia Mendez was still dreaming. 7 years old. Hair that wouldn't stay in its braids no matter how many bobby pins Clara used. A smile that could fix bad days. And a future so bright that Clara would burn herself to ashes fueling it. Sophia's father was supposed to be here. Miguel, the dreamer, the planner. The man who used to carry Sophia on his shoulders and call her mi princesa and swear on everything holy that his girls would never struggle like he did. But Miguel was 18 months gone now. Fell from scaffolding on a construction site that had failed 3 safety inspections. The company that was supposed to protect him lawyered up before his body was cold and filed for bankruptcy 2 weeks later. No settlement. No insurance. No accountability. Just a widow with a 7-year-old, a stack of medical bills from the 3 days Miguel held on, and a casket she was still paying off in monthly installments. So Clara did what Clara always did. She survived. Night shifts, cleaning rooms at St. Vincent's Hospital. Weekend shifts at the laundromat on 5th. Tutoring high school kids in Spanish when she could find the time, which she couldn't, but she did it anyway because every dollar mattered. She slept 4 hours a night. walked 40 minutes to Sophia's school because the bus pass cost $18 and Sophia needed new winter shoes, skipped meals so her daughter's lunch bag would have something in it, and every morning, when Sophia asked why Mama wasn't eating breakfast, Clara smiled and said she'd already eaten, before Sophia woke up, when it was still dark. She hadn't eaten breakfast in 11 days. Because when you're choosing between your hunger and your daughter's future, that's not a choice at all. Now, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself. Have you ever loved someone enough to disappear for them? To make yourself smaller, quieter, less visible, just so they could have a little more? Because that's what Clara was doing. She was erasing herself, one skipped meal at a time, and calling it strength. But strength has limits, and Clara Mendez was running out. She thought she could keep going forever. She thought no one would notice. But she didn't know that 8-year-old Ethan Donovan had his mother's eyes, the kind that saw what other people missed. And what he was about to see in that cafeteria would start a chain of events that no one could stop. 11:45 a.m. The cafeteria at Westbrook Academy was doing what it always did at lunchtime, buzzing with the chaotic energy of children who'd been sitting still for too long. Trays clattering, chairs scraping, voices bouncing off walls designed to look impressive in brochures. The menu that day was roasted chicken with herb butter, garlic mashed potatoes, steamed green beans, and a chocolate brownie that the kids would trade like currency. All of it organic, locally sourced, prepared by an actual chef who'd worked at a Michelin-starred restaurant before deciding school cafeterias were less stressful. This was normal at Westbrook. This was every day. And in the far corner, at a table by herself, sat Sophia Mendez. Her lunch bag was open in front of her. Inside was a sandwich. 2 slices of bread, the cheap kind that tears if you spread things too hard, with a thin layer of peanut butter. No jelly, no apple, no juice box, no chips. Just bread and peanut butter. Sophia was eating it slowly, one small bite at a time, making it last. Because she'd learned, somewhere in her 7 years, that food was something you stretched, something you were grateful for, something you didn't complain about, even when your stomach was growling and the other kids had trays piled high with hot food that smelled so good it almost hurt. She kept her eyes on her sandwich. If she didn't look up, no one would notice her. If no one noticed her, no one would ask questions. And if no one asked questions, she wouldn't have to explain why her lunch looked different from everyone else's. That was the plan. Stay invisible. Survive. But across the cafeteria, a pair of eyes were already watching. Ethan Donovan sat with his untouched tray. Chicken, potatoes, brownie, all of it, perfectly prepared and completely ignored. He wasn't hungry. He was never hungry. Not really. When you can have anything you want, wanting stops feeling like anything. But something about the girl in the corner made him stop pretending to eat. It was the way she held her sandwich, both hands, protective, like someone might take it if she wasn't careful, and the way she chewed, slowly, eyes down, making herself as small as possible. Ethan knew that posture. He'd seen it in the mirror. The posture of a kid who'd learned that nobody was really paying attention. He picked up his tray, walked across the cafeteria, sat down across from her without asking. Sophia looked up, startled. Her eyes went wide. That deer-in-headlights look of someone who'd been caught doing something wrong, except she hadn't done anything at all. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan pushed his tray to the center of the table. "My dad always packs too much. Want some?" Sophia stared at the tray. The chicken, the potatoes, the brownie that probably cost more than her mother made in an hour. "I'm okay." "I'm not going to eat it. It'll just get thrown away." "But it's yours. Now it's ours." Have you ever watched 2 lonely kids find each other? There's a recognition that happens. A quiet understanding that doesn't need words. They see each other, really see. And in a world full of adults who are too busy, too distracted, too wrapped up in their own chaos, that recognition is everything. Sophia reached for a green bean, then another. Ethan smiled. "I'm Ethan. I'm Sophia. Do you like to draw? I saw you drawing in class yesterday." And just like that, two universes collided. The boy who had everything and felt nothing, the girl who had nothing and felt everything. They didn't know it yet, but that lunch, that single shared meal, was going to change both of their lives. But more importantly, it was going to change their parents' lives too, in ways no one could have predicted, in ways that would hurt before they healed. Children pay attention to things adults forget to hide. Over the next 3 days, Ethan and Sophia became inseparable. They sat together at lunch. They found each other at recess. They traded stories in that way kids do. Half truth, half imagination, all feeling. Sophia told Ethan about her father, how he used to spin her around until she was dizzy, how his hands were rough from work but gentle when he braided her hair, how he promised they'd have a house someday with a backyard big enough for a dog, maybe 2 dogs, and a kitchen where her mother could cook without bumping into things. She didn't say he was dead. She said he was gone. And Ethan, who knew what gone meant, didn't push. Instead, he told Sophia about his mother, how she used to read to him every night before bed, how her voice was soft, like a song, how sometimes, when he closed his eyes really tight, he could still hear her saying his name. 2 kids, 2 ghosts, 1 table in a cafeteria that suddenly felt less empty. But here's what they talked about most: their living parents. Sophia talked about her mother's hands, how they were always moving, wiping counters, folding laundry, braiding hair, like they couldn't stop or everything would fall apart. How her mother's coat was too thin for the cold. How she always said she wasn't hungry, even when Sophia heard her stomach growling at night. "She thinks I don't know," Sophia said one day, "but I know." Ethan talked about his father's phone, how it was always in his hand, always buzzing, always more important than whatever Ethan was saying. How sometimes he'd ask his dad a question and have to wait for the call to end, and by the time it did, he'd forgotten what he wanted to say. "He works a lot," Ethan said. "Like, a lot, a lot. I don't think he knows how to stop. Why does he work so much? I think because it's easier than being sad." Sophia nodded. She understood that. Her mother worked a lot too, and she was definitely sad. Even when she smiled, the sadness was there, underneath, like a bruise that never healed. "Do you think they're lonely?" Sophia asked. "Yeah, I think maybe they are. We should fix that." And there it was, the seed of an idea, planted by a 7-year-old girl who had no concept of social barriers, wealth gaps, or the 1,000 reasons 2 adults from different worlds would never work. She just saw 2 lonely people who reminded her of each other, and she thought, maybe they should meet. If you're a parent watching this, I want you to think about something. What do your kids see when they look at you? Not what you think you're showing them, what they actually see. Because children are mirrors. They reflect the truth we try to hide. And sometimes, if we're lucky, they show us what we've been too blind to notice. December 17th, the day it all changed. 2:45 p.m., school pickup. The line of luxury cars snaked around the block. Range Rovers, BMWs. A few Porsches for the parents who really wanted everyone to know. Nannies in some of them, au pairs in others. The occasional mom or dad who ducked out of work early, guilt and duty pulling in equal measure. Alexander Donovan was in his usual spot. Tesla parked, Bluetooth off for once. He'd had a meeting cancel at the last minute and found himself with something he hadn't experienced in months. Time. Empty time. Time with nothing demanding to fill it. So he sat, and he watched. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, he actually looked at the world around him. That's when he saw her. Clara Mendez was standing at the school gate, waiting for Sophia. The freezing rain that had been threatening all afternoon had finally started coming down. Not a drizzle, not a mist, but actual rain, cold enough to sting. She had no umbrella. Her coat, thin, second-hand, bought at a thrift store for $12, was soaking through. Her hair, pulled back in a practical ponytail, was plastered to her face. Her shoes, worn flats that had probably been professional-looking once, were filling with water. And she just stood there, not running for cover, not looking around for help, not doing anything except waiting, patient, enduring. Like she'd been enduring things her whole life, and this was just another item on the list. Alex couldn't look away. There was something about her stillness that unnerved him. Most people would be annoyed by the rain, complaining, checking their phones, looking for an exit. But this woman, she was just present, fully there, accepting the cold and the wet like they were taxes she'd already agreed to pay. Who was she? He watched her for 3 minutes, then 5. Then the school doors opened and children came pouring out, and a little girl with messy braids ran straight to the woman in the rain. Clara's face transformed. The exhaustion was still there, but underneath it, underneath everything, was love, pure and absolute and fierce enough to burn. She knelt down, ignoring the puddles, soaking her knees, and wrapped her arms around Sophia like the girl was the only thing in the world that mattered. Because she was. Alex felt something crack inside his chest. A hairline fracture in a wall he'd spent 4 years building. When was the last time he'd looked at Ethan like that? When was the last time he'd knelt down, ignored everything else, and made his son feel like the center of the universe? He couldn't remember. The car door opened. Ethan climbed in, backpack dropping on the seat. "Dad?" "That's Sophia's mom." "Who?" "Sophia, my friend. She draws really good. Her mom walks here every day because they don't have a car. She walks like 40 minutes, Sophia told me." Alex looked back at the gate. Clara and Sophia were already walking away hand in hand, disappearing into the gray rain like ghosts. 40 minutes? Yeah, even when it's snowing. Alex didn't say anything. But he didn't pull out of the parking lot either. He just sat there, watching the spot where they disappeared, wondering why he couldn't breathe right. "Dad, are you okay?" Yeah, I'm fine." But he wasn't. He wasn't fine at all. Something had shifted, and he didn't know how to shift it back. If this had been any other week, Alex would have forgotten about the woman in the rain. He would have gone back to his emails and his deals and his perfectly organized life. But what he didn't know, what nobody knew, was that his 8-year-old son had already set something in motion, and there was no going back. All right, I need to pause here for a second, because if you've made it this far, you're not just watching, you're invested. You care about what happens to these people. And that means something. So I'm going to ask you directly, are you subscribed? Because here's the thing. Creating stories like this takes time, research, heart. And every time you subscribe, you're telling me that this kind of content matters. That love stories, real ones, complicated ones, ones that don't wrap up in 5 minutes with a perfect bow, are worth telling. If Clara can walk 40 minutes in freezing rain for her daughter's future, you can take 2 seconds to hit subscribe. But if you can't, if something's stopping you, I genuinely want to know. Drop a comment. Tell me what's holding you back. Tell me what would make this better. Because I'm not here to collect subscribers like trophies. I'm here to build something that matters. And I can't do that without honest feedback. Subscribe, or tell me why you won't. Either way, let's keep going. December 20th, 3 days before Christmas, 8:17 a.m. Alex was supposed to be at a meeting. A big one. Video call with investors in Singapore who'd flown in specifically to discuss the expansion. The kind of meeting that could add another zero to his net worth if he played it right. But instead of sitting in his home office with the ring light and the practiced smile, he was standing in a coffee shop 3 blocks from Westbrook Academy, ordering a drink he didn't want because he'd told himself he just needed to get out of the house for a minute. That was the lie he told himself. The truth? He was hoping to see her. He didn't even know her name. Just the woman in the rain, the woman who walked 40 minutes, the woman whose face transformed when she saw her daughter like the whole world suddenly made sense. He'd thought about her every day since. While he was reviewing contracts, while he was eating dinner across from Ethan's silence, while he was lying in bed at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering why the things that used to matter didn't anymore. The door opened. Cold air rushed in, and there she was. Clara Mendez walked into the coffee shop like someone who'd been walking her whole life, purpose in every step, head high, even though her eyes were tired, coat still too thin, hands still chapped from cold and work and all the things she couldn't afford to fix. She got in line behind him. He turned around. Their eyes met. Have you ever looked at someone for the first time and felt like you recognized them? Not from a photograph or a passing glance, but from somewhere deeper? Somewhere that doesn't have a name? That's what Alex felt. Recognition. Like some part of him had been waiting for her without knowing it. Clara felt something too. She just didn't trust it. She looked away first. Of course she did. Men like him didn't look at women like her, not unless they wanted something. And Clara had learned a long time ago that when people wanted something from you, the cost was always higher than you expected. Alex ordered his coffee, stepped aside, watched her approach the counter. Just a small black coffee, please. That'll be $2.75. Clara reached into her pocket, pulled out a handful of change, started counting quarters, dimes, nickels. The coins clinked against each other, and Alex could see her fingers trembling, not from cold, but from something worse. Humiliation. She was short. 14 cents short. I'm sorry. I thought I had. Add hers to mine. Alex's voice cut through before he could stop himself. Clara's head snapped toward him. I didn't ask for... I know. That's why I'm offering. I don't take charity. It's not charity. It's coffee. They stared at each other. The barista looked between them, caught in something she didn't understand. The line behind Clara was getting restless. Fine, Clara said finally. But I'm paying you back. I'll survive either way, he replied. She grabbed her coffee and walked to the furthest table in the shop. Alex should have left. He had a meeting. He had responsibilities. He had 100 reasons to walk out that door and never think about this woman again. Instead, he sat down at the table next to hers. I'm not going to bother you, but I'm not going to pretend I didn't notice you either. Clara didn't look at him. You're Ethan's father. You know my son? Sophia talks about him constantly. Apparently, he shares his lunch with her. Alex felt that crack in his chest widen. His son was sharing his lunch? Why didn't he know that? I didn't know that. No, I don't imagine you did. There was something in her voice. Not anger, not judgment, just observation, like she'd already figured him out and found him lacking. It should have offended him. Instead, it made him want to prove her wrong. You walk Sophia to school every day, 40 minutes each way, in the freezing cold. Who told you that? Ethan. Your son pays more attention than you do. That one landed. Direct hit. Alex had no defense. You're right, he does. Something shifted in Clara's expression. She'd expected him to argue, to get defensive, to do what rich people usually did when you called them out. Dismiss you, deflect, make it about something else. But he didn't. He just agreed. I'm Clara. Alex? I know who you are. Your name's on the school building. My company donated a library. They put my name on it. I didn't ask them to. Must be nice. Having so much money you accidentally name buildings. Alex laughed. Actually laughed. When was the last time someone had spoken to him like this? Without reverence, without agenda, without wanting something. It's not as nice as you'd think. I wouldn't know. They sat there for 45 minutes, missing meetings, ignoring responsibilities, talking about things that surprised them both. Clara told him about Miguel, the accident, the bankruptcy, the scramble to survive. She didn't dramatize it. She didn't ask for sympathy. She just stated the facts, like she was reading a grocery list. Alex told her about Rebecca, the diagnosis, the 8 months, the way grief doesn't announce when it's leaving, so you just carry it everywhere, all the time, until the weight becomes so familiar you forget what it felt like to stand up straight. 4 years, Alex said, and I still sleep on my side of the bed, like she's coming back. 18 months. And I still buy his brand of coffee, even though I hate it. They looked at each other, and in that look, something passed between them. Something neither of them was ready to name. Understanding. 2 people who had lost the person they loved most. 2 people who had been surviving alone for so long they'd forgotten what company felt like. I should go, Clara said. I have a shift at the laundromat in an hour. How many jobs do you work? Enough. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. Asterisk, she stood up, pulled on her coat, headed for the door. Asterisk. Clara. She stopped. Didn't turn around. My son's the best thing in my life, and I've been ignoring him for 4 years because I didn't know how to stop. You noticed that about me before I did, so thank you. Clara turned, looked at him. For a moment her walls came down. Just a crack, just a glimpse, and he saw what was underneath. The exhaustion, the fear, the loneliness that matched his own. Maybe don't thank me, maybe just fix it. Then she was gone, out into the cold, back to her life, back to her battles. But Alex didn't move. He just sat there, coffee going cold, wondering why a woman he'd spoken to for less than an hour already felt like someone he'd been waiting his whole life to meet. That evening, Ethan asked a question that stopped Alex in his tracks. They were sitting at the dinner table, the massive dining table that seated 12, but only ever held 2, eating takeout from the place on 5th Street because the cook had the night off and Alex couldn't boil water without setting off the smoke alarm. Dad, can Sophia and her mom come for Christmas? Alex set down his fork. What? Sophia says they don't have anywhere to go. Her grandparents live far away and they can't afford to visit, so they're just going to stay home, just the 2 of them. And I thought maybe they could come here instead? Alex didn't know what to say. A week ago, he would have made an excuse. He had the company Christmas party on December 23rd. Investors and executives and their polished spouses making polished small talk in his polished house. The last thing he needed was complications. But now he kept thinking about Clara's hands, the way they trembled while she counted coins, the way she walked into the rain without flinching, the way she looked at her daughter like Sophia was the only thing keeping her tethered to the earth. I'll think about it. Ethan's face fell. That means no. No, buddy. It means I'll think about it, really. Later that night, Alex stood in Ethan's doorway and watched his son sleep. 8 years old. Growing so fast. Looking more like Rebecca every day. The same gentle eyes, the same quiet way of watching the world. When had he stopped noticing? When had he started treating fatherhood like an item on his to-do list instead of the whole point of his life? He thought about what Clara said. Maybe don't thank me, maybe just fix it. She was right. She was absolutely right. And she'd said it to him without softening it, without wrapping it in politeness, without caring about his money or his feelings or his fragile ego. When was the last time anyone had done that? Alex pulled out his phone, scrolled through his contacts until he found his assistant's number, started typing. Cancel the investor dinner on the 23rd. Something came up. He stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it. Not yet. He wasn't ready yet. But something was changing. He could feel it. Like a tide turning, like a season shifting, like the first crack of ice on a frozen lake. And it all started with a woman in the rain. What would you do if you were Alex? If you met someone who saw through all your walls, all your excuses, all the ways you'd learned to hide? Would you run toward that person, or would you run away? Think about it, because the answer matters more than you know. Alex told himself he'd take it slow, figure things out, be careful. But what he didn't know was that someone else had already made a decision for him. And by this time tomorrow, everything would be different. December 21st, 4 days before Christmas, 3:15 p.m. Alex was waiting outside the school. Not in the car, outside of it. Standing by the gate like a normal parent, hands in his pockets, breath fogging in the cold air. When was the last time he'd done this? Just stood somewhere, without a phone, without a meeting, without the constant hum of productivity telling him he should be somewhere else? He couldn't remember. The doors opened. Kids poured out. And there, in the crowd, was Clara, still wearing that thin coat, still looking like she hadn't slept in a week, still somehow managing to look more alive than anyone else in the parking lot. She saw him, stopped. Her expression was unreadable. Stalking me now? Standing. There's a difference. The man who owns half the buildings in this city doesn't have anywhere better to stand? Not today. Sophia came running up. "Mama, Ethan's dad is here." "I noticed, mi amor." Ethan appeared beside his father, grinning. The two kids immediately launched into conversation. Something about a drawing, something about a project, and for a moment, Alex and Clara just watched them. "They're good together," Alex said. "They are. Sophia's a special kid. She's everything." Alex took a breath. This was it. The moment he'd been turning over in his mind since the coffee shop. "I have a Christmas party, the 23rd, at my house. It's mostly boring executives and their boring spouses, but there's good food and the kids could hang out and—" No. The word came fast, hard, final. "Clara." I said no. She grabbed Sophia's hand, started walking. Alex followed. "Wait. Just wait a second. There's nothing to wait for. I know how this goes. Rich man meets struggling single mom. Invites her to his fancy party. Shows her off like a project. Everyone whispers about the charity case, and when he gets bored, she's right back where she started, except now she's humiliated." Alex stepped in front of her. Not blocking her, just present. "Is that what you think this is?" "It's what it always is." "What if it's not?" "Then you're the first, and I don't believe in firsts." They stood there. Snow starting to fall, kids laughing somewhere in the distance, and in Clara's eyes, Alex saw something he recognized. Fear. Not of him. Of hope. Of letting herself believe that something good might actually happen, because every time she'd believed that before, the universe had found a way to tear it away. "My son asked me to invite you," Alex said quietly. "Not because I told him to, because he cares about your daughter, and I think he might be braver than I am." "What does that mean?" "It means I've spent 4 years hiding from anything that might hurt, and I'm tired. I'm so tired, Clara, and when I saw you standing in the rain that day, not complaining, not asking for help, just surviving, I felt something I haven't felt since my wife died." "What?" Like I wasn't alone anymore. Clara didn't say anything, but she didn't walk away either. "I'm not trying to save you. I don't think you need saving. I'm just asking if you'll let me stand next to you for one night. Just one. And if it's terrible, you never have to see me again. And if it's not terrible, then maybe we figure that out together." Snow fell between them. Sophia was tugging at Clara's hand, asking what was wrong. Ethan was watching his father like he'd never seen him before. "I don't have anything to wear to a party like that." "You could wear a garbage bag and still be the most real person in the room." She almost smiled. "Almost. I'll think about it. That's all I'm asking." She walked away then, Sophia waving goodbye to Ethan over her shoulder. Alex watched them until they disappeared around the corner. Ethan looked up at his father. "Dad? Are you okay?" "Yeah, buddy. I think I might be." But that night, alone in her apartment, Clara sat on the edge of her couch and stared at the wall for a long time. Could she really do this? Walk into his world? Stand next to people who spent more on appetizers than she made in a month? And more terrifying, could she let herself feel something again, after Miguel? After all the ways the world had taught her that hope was just a setup for heartbreak, she almost decided to say no. Almost convinced herself it was the safer choice. But then Sophia came out of her bedroom, holding a drawing. "Mama, look what I made." Clara took the paper. It was a picture. A house with a big kitchen. 4 people standing in front of it. 2 adults, 2 children, and at the top, in Sophia's careful handwriting, "My Christmas wish." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "It's beautiful, mi amor. That's us, and that's Ethan and his dad, because they're lonely too. And I thought maybe we could all be lonely together, and then we wouldn't be lonely anymore." From the mouths of babes, Clara pulled her daughter close, held her tight, and made a decision that would change everything. She said yes. Against every instinct screaming at her to run, she said yes. But Clara didn't know what was waiting for her at that party. She didn't know about the people who would try to destroy her. And she didn't know that the man who invited her had secrets of his own, secrets that could ruin them both. December 23rd, the night of the party, 7 p.m. The Donovan estate looked like something out of a movie. 10,000 square feet of architectural perfection, covered in tasteful white lights and real evergreen garlands, valets parking luxury cars, caterers in white jackets carrying silver trays, a string quartet playing in the foyer because apparently that's what rich people did at Christmas. Clara stood at the end of the driveway, holding Sophia's hand, and seriously considered turning around. "Mama, it's so pretty." "It is, mi amor. Are you scared?" "No, baby. Mama's not scared." She walked toward the front door. Each step felt like a mile. Her dress, the nicest thing she owned, bought 3 years ago for Miguel's cousin's wedding, suddenly felt cheap and obvious. Her shoes pinched. Her hair, which she'd spent an hour styling, was already rebelling against the humidity. But she kept walking, because she'd made a promise. To Sophia, to herself, and maybe, just maybe, to the man who'd looked at her like she was the first real thing he'd seen in years. The door opened before she could knock, and there was Alex. He was wearing a suit. Expensive, obviously, but his eyes were warm, relieved, like he'd been holding his breath and could finally let it go. "You came. I said I would." "I know, but I was afraid you'd change your mind." "I almost did. 3 times. What stopped you?" She held up Sophia's drawing, the one with the 4 people and the big kitchen. Alex looked at it for a long moment. When he looked back up, his eyes were wet. "She drew us together. Kids see things adults miss." Ethan appeared behind his father. His face lit up when he saw Sophia. "You're here! Come on, I want to show you the Christmas tree. It's huge!" The kids disappeared into the house. And suddenly it was just Alex and Clara standing in the doorway, snow falling softly behind them. "Ready?" "Not even a little bit." Good, me neither. Let's be terrified together. He offered his arm. She took it, and together they walked into the lion's den. The party was exactly what Clara expected. Beautiful people in beautiful clothes, making beautiful small talk about their beautiful lives. Executives comparing vacation homes, wives discussing charitable galas. Everyone so polished, so perfect, so utterly unaware that a woman who cleaned hospital floors for a living was standing among them. She felt their eyes, the quick once-overs, the raised eyebrows, the whispered conversations that stopped when she walked past. Clara Mendez had faced a lot in her life. Poverty, loss, the kind of grief that makes you forget your own name. But nothing had prepared her for the casual cruelty of wealth. She's clearly after his money. Where do you think he found her? Some kind of dating service? I give it 2 weeks. He'll realize she doesn't belong. They thought she couldn't hear. They were wrong. Alex felt her tense. He leaned in close. Do you want to leave? Do you want me to leave? I want you to stay, but only if you want to. Clara thought about it. For exactly 3 seconds. No, I'm not running. They don't get to decide where I belong. Something shifted in Alex's expression. Respect. Admiration. Something deeper. I knew I liked you. You barely know me. I'm working on that. And right there, in the middle of a room full of people who thought she was nothing, Clara smiled. A real smile. The first one in longer than she could remember. Maybe, just maybe, this was going to be okay. Okay, we're in the middle of something big here. The tension is building. You can feel it, right? But I need to stop for a second and ask, are you still with me? Because if you've made it this far, if you're actually invested in what happens to Clara and Alex, then you're exactly the kind of person this channel is for. Someone who doesn't just scroll mindlessly. Someone who wants stories that actually mean something. And if that's you, I need you to do something. Right now. Before we keep going, hit subscribe. Not because I'm asking nicely, not because you feel obligated, but because Clara just walked into a room full of people who think she's nothing, and she didn't run. She stood her ground. She refused to let their judgment decide her worth. If she can do that, you can click a button, but if you won't, if something's stopping you, then I want you in the comments. Tell me what's holding you back. Tell me what I need to do better. Tell me why a free subscription to a channel that's clearly trying to create something meaningful isn't worth your click. Because here's the truth. Every time you scroll past without engaging, you're telling creators like me that this doesn't matter. That stories about real struggle and real love and real courage aren't worth your time. Is that the message you want to send? Subscribe, or tell me why not. Now let's get back to the story, because what happens next is going to change everything. An hour into the party, Clara started to relax, just a little. She and Alex had found a quiet corner near the window. The snow was coming down harder now, turning the garden into a winter wonderland. Sophia and Ethan were somewhere in the house, playing with Christmas decorations. The whispers had faded into background noise. This isn't as terrible as I expected, Clara admitted. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about my parties. I didn't say it was good, just not terrible. I'll take it. They were laughing, actually laughing, when Richard Hale appeared. Richard was Alex's business partner, co-founder of the company, the kind of man who looked at spreadsheets instead of people and saw numbers instead of souls. He'd built his half of the empire through ruthless efficiency and zero sentimentality. Alex. A word? I'm in the middle of... Now. There was something in his voice. Something sharp. Alex's jaw tightened. Excuse me for a moment, he said to Clara. He followed Richard into the study. The door closed, and Clara was alone. She shouldn't have followed. She knew that. But something in her gut told her this wasn't a routine business conversation, so she moved closer to the door, close enough to hear. "What the hell are you doing?" Richard's voice was ice. "I'm hosting a Christmas party. Like I do every year." "You know what I mean. The woman, the janitor, her name is Clara." "I don't care what her name is. Do you have any idea what people are saying? The optics alone." "I don't care about optics." "You should, because the Singapore investors are here. Tonight. And instead of networking with people who could add 50 million to our valuation, you're parading around with someone who cleans toilets for a living." Silence. Clara's heart pounded. "She's more than that." "Is she? What do you actually know about her? A widow with a sob story? A kid at the same school as Ethan? That's not a foundation for anything. That's a liability." "Richard, I'm trying to protect you, and the company, and your son. What do you think happens when the press gets wind of this? Billionaire dates the help. You think that's a headline we can survive?" Clara felt sick. Millionaire dates the help. Is that what she was? A headline waiting to happen? She should leave. Right now. Before this got any worse. Before she embarrassed herself further. Before Sophia had to watch her mother become a cautionary tale. But then she heard Alex's voice. Quiet, controlled, and absolutely furious. "Are you finished? I'm trying to help." "No. You're trying to control. There's a difference. And I'm done letting you do it. Alex, that woman out there has more dignity in her little finger than everyone in that ballroom combined. She walks 40 minutes in freezing rain so her daughter can go to a good school. She works 2 jobs and sleeps 4 hours a night. She lost her husband and didn't break. She's the strongest person I've ever met. And if you think I'm going to apologize for wanting to spend time with her, you don't know me at all. You're throwing away everything we built. No, I'm finally building something that matters." The door opened. Alex walked out. His eyes found Clara immediately. He knew she'd heard. "I'm sorry you had to. Don't apologize." Clara's voice was steady, stronger than she felt. "He's right about one thing. I am a liability. I don't fit in your world." "Maybe I don't want to fit in my world anymore," Alex replied. "Alex, Clara, look at me." She did. And what she saw there, the certainty, the conviction, the raw vulnerability of a man who was finally letting himself feel something, took her breath away. "I spent 4 years building walls, telling myself they kept me safe. But all they did was keep me alone. And then you walked into my life. No umbrella, no pretense, no interest in my money or my name, and suddenly the walls didn't make sense anymore. This is crazy. Maybe, but it's the first thing that's felt sane in a long time." He took her hand, right there in the hallway, where anyone could see. "Stay, please. Not because I'm asking, because you want to." Clara looked at their hands, his fingers wrapped around hers, warm, certain, safe. "I don't know how to do this." "Neither do I. We'll figure it out together." She should have said no. Every rational thought told her this was too fast, too complicated, too likely to end in heartbreak. But then she thought about Sophia's drawing. The 4 people, the big kitchen, the Christmas wish that was so simple it hurt, and she decided, just this once, to stop protecting herself from hope. Okay, I'll stay." Alex smiled. A real smile, the kind that transformed his whole face. And somewhere in the house, 2 children who had started this whole thing were building a gingerbread house together, completely unaware that they had just changed the course of 4 lives forever. She said yes. She let herself hope. She took his hand and stepped into a future she never imagined. But the night wasn't over, and Christmas morning would bring something neither of them expected. a gift that couldn't be wrapped, but would last forever. December 25th, 6:43 a.m. Clara woke up to the sound of knocking. She'd fallen asleep on the couch, like always, but this time she wasn't alone. Sophia was curled up beside her, still wearing her dress from the party 2 nights before, a candy cane clutched in her sleeping hand. The party. It felt like a dream now. The snow, the lights, Alex's hand in hers, the look on his face when she said she'd stay, more knocking, insistent. Clara stumbled to the door, still half asleep, and opened it. Alex was standing there, Ethan beside him, both of them holding grocery bags and wearing the most ridiculous matching Christmas sweaters she'd ever seen. "What are you—" "Merry Christmas," Alex said. "We brought breakfast. It's 6 in the morning. Pancakes wait for no one." He pushed past her into the apartment. Ethan followed, immediately spotting Sophia on the couch and running to wake her up. "Alex, you can't just—" "I know, but I did." He was already in the kitchen, her tiny, cramped kitchen with the dripping sink and the hot plate and the row of oranges she'd arranged to make the place look intentional. "This is cozy. It's small. You can say it. I was going to say it feels like a home, unlike my place, which feels like a hotel that happens to have my stuff in it." Clara didn't know what to say, so she watched him. This man worth $200 million, standing in her 500-square-foot apartment, pulling mixing bowls out of grocery bags like he did this every day. "You brought actual ingredients. I'm making pancakes from scratch. Do you know how to make pancakes from scratch?" "No, but I watched a YouTube video." "How hard can it be?" 45 minutes later, the kitchen was a disaster. Flour everywhere, 3 ruined attempts in the trash, smoke alarm going off twice, and 4 people laughing harder than any of them had laughed in years. The pancakes, when they finally came out, were misshapen and slightly burnt. Ethan said they looked like clouds. Sophia said they looked like aliens. Alex said they looked like his cooking career was over before it began. But they ate every single one. And sitting around that tiny table, the table that barely fit 2, now somehow squeezing 4, Clara felt something she hadn't felt since Miguel died. She felt like she belonged. "I have something for you," Alex said quietly. After the kids had run off to compare presents, he handed her a small wrapped package. She opened it. Inside was a photo. Framed. The coffee shop where they'd first really talked. Underneath, in careful handwriting, "Where I started seeing clearly." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "I don't have anything for you. I couldn't afford. You gave me something already." "What?" "You made my son smile. You made me feel like a person instead of a bank account. You told me the truth about myself when everyone else was too scared to. That's worth more than anything I could buy." She looked at him, this man who had everything and nothing, who had walked through the same grief she had, who was just as terrified as she was, but doing it anyway. "I don't know where this is going. Neither do I." "I'm scared." "Me too. But I think I want to find out." Alex reached across the table, took her hand, the same way he had at the party. The same certainty, the same warmth. "Then we find out together." And in that moment, in that tiny apartment, with burnt pancakes and laughing children and snow falling outside the window, 2 broken people started to become whole again. Not because they fixed each other, but because they stopped running. They let themselves be seen. They chose hope over fear. And that, more than anything, is what love actually is. One year later, Alex and Clara stood in front of a house. Not the mansion, not the apartment, something in between. A house with a big kitchen and a backyard for the dog they'd adopted in March. A house with 4 bedrooms, 1 for each of them, and a dining table that fit everyone. Sophia and Ethan were inside, decorating the tree. Their laughter echoed through the halls. "She drew this," Clara said quietly. "A year ago, the house, the four of us. She drew this. Kids see things adults miss." "Yeah, they do." Alex put his arm around her. She leaned into him, and they stood there, watching the snow fall. Finally home. The wedding would come in spring. The foundation they started, the Miguel Mendez Memorial Fund for Families Affected by Workplace Accidents, would help 300 families in its first year. The lunch program they launched at Westbrook Academy would ensure no child ever sat with an empty tray again. But all of that was in the future. In this moment, there was just this. Two people who had lost everything, finding each other in the middle of a storm, choosing to stay when running would have been easier. And if that's not a Christmas miracle, I don't know what is. So here's my question for you, and I want you to really think about it. What would have happened if Alex had looked at his phone that day instead of watching Clara walk into the rain? What would have happened if Clara had said no to the party? What would have happened if either of them had let fear win? We'll never know, because they didn't. They chose each other. They chose hope, and that choice changed everything. Now let me ask you something else. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something, believe in something, remember something, then I need you to do one thing for me. Subscribe. Not because I'm begging, not because I'll guilt you into it, but because stories like this matter. In a world full of noise and chaos and content that exists just to fill time, stories about real love and real courage and real hope actually mean something. And every time you subscribe, you're telling me to keep making them. But if you won't, if you've watched this entire video and still can't bring yourself to click that button, then I want you in the comments. I want to know why. I want to know what's stopping you. Because I'd rather have your honest feedback than your silent scroll. Clara walked 40 minutes in freezing rain for her daughter's future. Alex gave up everything he knew to stand next to someone the world told him to ignore. You can click a button, subscribe, share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the person you're meant to find rarely comes wrapped the way you expect. Keep your eyes open, keep your heart open, and never, ever be too busy to notice the people standing in the rain. I'll see you in the next one.